It's always good morning when Jody Mack joins me here on Good Morning NFC East. We're getting an early Jody Mack today. Well, once again, Jody, thanks for coming on so early.
I got some coffee in me. I think I can fake this for you for the next 20 minutes, Mr. Kerr. My pleasure.
Yeah, why not? And, you know, this isn't a show with Jody Mack unless I'm criticizing Josh McDaniels, which last night was pretty much my dream, seeing Baker Mayfield, who wasn't even on that team 72 hours ago, beat Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. I can't stand Josh McDaniels. He's the most overrated coach in the history of football. And now he found a way to lose to Jeff Saturday, who was at ESPN 6 days beforehand. And now he loses to Baker Mayfield. This is glorious.
You know, I have no issue with that whatsoever. Not a McDaniel fan either. Overrated, very good way to describe him. And a quitter, too. Add that one to the mix. He takes the cold job and walks away. And, oh, by the way, sticks them with their entire coaching staff who they hired for him. And said, yeah, no, never mind. I'll stay in New England. Yeah, not a Josh McDaniel fan. And over what he had done over the last couple of weeks, I thought he kind of dodged the Grim Reaper. But there was a chance that McDaniel could have been a one-and-done guy. Some people on my CBS National show were saying he needs to be fired immediately. I said, well, they're not going to do that. They may fire him at the end of the year, but they're not going to do that. He did get a couple of wins. Looks like they had it turned around, going in the right direction, not making the playoffs right direction, but at least in the right direction. Oh, that all came to a screeching halt last night.
Yeah, it was funny, right? Because I had to write on Wednesday about certain teams all the teams that are out of the playoffs, their chances of going in. And I actually said I like the Raiders' schedule, but Josh McDaniels is their coach. He'll find a way to lose a game he shouldn't. Thursday night was that game.
Yeah, right away. Didn't take very long for that to happen.
No, they're out. And here's what sucks, right? So he might have to be the head coach for that team again next year because of how much they're paying him. And I just don't get why you fire Rich Bisaccia, who did a good job at that team last year, and hire him. Of all people, like I remember when the Eagles were almost going to settle on Josh McDaniels as their head coach, and I'm like, please don't. I do not want to hate this franchise. And I just did not want to find reasons to hate a football franchise. But right now, I don't like the Raiders because of Josh McDaniels.
You're not the only one. You and I are, and we're not the only ones, and there are others. It was actually pretty close. Johnny Mack tells the story on Birds 365 all the time, that if Howie Roseman had complete control and didn't have to run it past Jeff Lurie, that Josh McDaniels would have been the Eagles head coach. That Howie thought he was the man for the job, and it was Jeff who said, you two guys working together, really two A personalities like you are? I see potential conflict. No, I don't think this is a good idea. So give Jeff Lurie, just another thing you can give Jeff Lurie credit about as the owner of the Eagles. Josh McDaniel would have been here rather than Nick Sirianni if Howie Roseman had his druthers 2 years ago.
Yeah, and now Nick Sirianni is what? I'm trying to remember his exact record as Eagles head coach. I think he's 20-9.
28-1. The one being last year when the JV played against the Dallas Cowboys. I don't hold that as a complete loss for Sirianni. So 28-1. That's pretty good, I'd have to say, Jeff Kerr.
He's a pretty good coach. I will say that. By the way, how about his connections with Brian Daboll? And yeah, I was looking into this week because I knew they were close, they were friends. I totally forgot that Nick Sirianni and Brian Daboll were on the Kansas City staff before Andy Reid. When Todd Haley was there, Daboll actually hired Sirianni to be the wide receivers coach.
Yeah, that was a talented coaching staff, just a bad football team, and not necessarily with a winning head coach, but they had some talented guys on their staff like Daboll and Sirianni, who, this week Nick did talk about the fact that he respects Sable as much as he did, and Sable was one of those guys Daboll was one of those guys who moved his career along. I expect a good hug or handshake after the game between those two. I think it'll be easier for Sirianni because he's going to be on the long end of the score when these two teams meet on Saturday.
Yeah. By the way, did you know Brian Daboll, in a way, introduced Nick Sirianni to Jalen Hurts?
That's true, because Dable, I keep calling him Sable.
It's early, Jody.
Combining the two of them together, Sirianni and Dable make Sable. Dable was at Alabama when Jalen was there. So there are all sorts of historical connections between these two teams, the biggest of which is the fact they've been playing forever against each other in the NFC East. So there's no love lost between the two teams, but there are some nice connections between guys from each squad.
By the way, Jody, why do you think people are discrediting? I don't want to say people because that's too general, but why do you think there are a lot of, I guess we can go by Twitter trolls, especially in Dallas. Why do you think the Eagles' 11-1 start is discredited like it is?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would use the word discredited either. Just not given the proper due that it should have earned. Yeah, if it's a Dallas fan, they don't want to admit to it because then they have to actually look at the standings and see that they're 2 games behind. You can do this with almost any team that you want to. Find the one game where they played great and tie it everything to that. You disregard there's some kind of excuse or explanation for the bad games that you had. You can do it with any team you want in the league. So yeah, people want to do that. You attack from the top down, and the Eagles are the top team record-wise in the National Football League. So yeah, they haven't really beaten anybody. Oh, except they beat the Cowboys and the Vikings. Oh, but you beat the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. But that week, Cooper Rush was the undefeated Cooper Rush. Yeah. Cooper Rush he can match up with any starting quarterback in the league, Cooper Rush. After he lost a couple of weeks later, it's just Cooper Rush. That's you beat a backup quarterback. Cowboy fans weren't saying that week prior to the game, but 2020 hindsight, revisionist history is always very easy to come up with.
So it's funny, right? The Cowboys always like to say that, but I said, you can't say that to 2 teams in NFL history, the Eagles and the Giants. Well, you beat a backup quarterback. Well, hold on a second. The Eagles have won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, and so have the New York Giants. So basically, the 2 of the 3 teams you can't stand, you can't respond to them like that.
True. Nick Foles did come off the bench to win it just a couple of years ago, and Jeff Hostetler many years ago filled in for Phil Simms. So yeah, this division has a history. Good morning, NFC East. Of being able to win with backup quarterbacks, and Cooper Rush did win games for the Cowboys.
He was pretty good too.
He just didn't beat the Eagles.
Yeah, he was pretty good too. He didn't turn the football over. I remember when they played the Rams that week. And I said, the Rams kind of exposed him. And people were like, what are you talking about? I said, well, he fumbled the ball twice. He was making a couple poor decisions that he got away with. And I'm like, you better not do that against the Eagles. He's going to throw interceptions. And I think he ended up throwing 3, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. I don't remember.
It's been so long ago. That was week 6. Jerry, I wanted to ask you this. So the Cowboys are playing the Texans this week, right? I don't know why I do this to myself, but I watch the Texans every week. I watch everybody.
Why? No, yeah. You're making that stuff up. You don't watch the Texans.
I did I had to last week because Deshaun was playing them, right? So, and by the way, Cleveland looked horrible. But how did the Texans get worse than last year? I still don't think David Culley should have truly been fired. I thought he overachieved with a terrible roster last year. This is a better roster this year, and somehow they got worse.
Actually, I don't know if they're worse. It's just they've found ways to lose games. Well, no, if the standings say they're worse, they're worse. Fine, I'll buy into it.
Yeah, I'm going by the Jody Mack here, the Jody Mack theory. You are what your record says you are.
You are what your record says you are. I don't quite know. Well, I've never been a Mills fan. I wouldn't say I argue, but I always sound perplexed when I talk to someone like John McClain from Texas, and he said, oh, no, the Texans like him. They have no problem moving on with him as their starting quarterback, because I thought they were going to go back into the draft this past year and try and take, since they basically divested themselves of Deshaun Watson, get themselves another quarterback. Oh, no, they like Davis Mills. And he quotes the quarterback ranking from the last 4 weeks of the season was one of the best. Who cares? The team was already buried, done, and gone. He had a couple of games against mediocre opponents. he's not a starting quarterback. Kyle Allen might actually be worse. Maybe that's the reason why they stayed with Davis Mills as long as they did. They don't have a legit NFL quarterback on their roster. Oh, they better get one this offseason.
And I'll say this about Davis Mills. I don't think he's a starter either, but I think he's going to be in the league for a while because I think he's one of those guys, again, Stanford guy. I feel like he's going to be part of the Texans' future, just not as a starting quarterback. I think he'll be a very good backup for them. But you're right. Like, when they benched him for Kyle Allen, I'm like, oh, the tank job's on. Like, they're trying to make sure they get that number one pick.
Davis Mills should be with another team next year. I've covered enough teams, I know you have too, that you can make this statement about. When you have a guy who's been a starting quarterback for a period of time, and Davis Mills is over more than an entire year, over the course of 2 years, when he becomes the backup, that can be a tricky situation. That can be guys in the locker room having to make a call, state of preference, root for a guy to not play that they went to war with before. If you think Davis Mills can be a backup quarterback, successful one in the league, I guess I'll buy that. It's a little bit of a stretch. I just don't think the kid can play, period. To be truthful with you, Jeff, I don't know that he's a good backup quarterback either. I sure as hell know he's not a starter, but I don't think he should be the backup in Houston. I think that he would be, for his own good, he would be best backing up somewhere else in the league.
And that might be the case in the long run, but I'm just looking at it in terms of immediate future because I would assume whoever the Texans draft at quarterback next year will be the starter. I did want to ask you this, Jody, though, since we did bring up the Texans because they are playing Dallas this week. There is no way Dallas loses this game, right?
No. Could they go through the motions and end up being in a one-score game early in the fourth quarter? Possibly. When they need to, when they have to, they'll hunker down on defense. They get a turnover. They'll do what they have to. No, I don't think there's any way they can lose to the Texans. No,
that's how I feel. Like they would have to basically pull what Cleveland did last week, but even worse. And there's no way Dak Prescott is going to play as bad as Deshaun Watson did last week against them. I just. By the way, what did you think of Deshaun Watson? And how he looked last week.
He looked like a guy who hadn't played in a year and change. A couple of passes look good. He's going to be a step up for the Browns going forward. Will he ever live up to the contract that he signed? Maybe not. They had to do what they had to do. He had all the leverage, and he played it perfectly. But do I think he'll give them the best quarterback play they've had in years? Yeah, sorry, Baker Mayfield. I know you won the game last night, but you didn't do all that well in Cleveland. Yeah, I think he'll be better than anything they've had. But is he going to be a guy who's going to lift Cleveland to Super Bowl heights within the first 2 years of his deal? I'm not going there either.
We got to look at the NFC East playoff picture, right? So Washington, they're a half game out. I still think in the way the tie helps them. I mean, the tie usually helps more than hurts teams these days. Giants are in right now, but they got to play the Eagles twice. We know the Eagles and Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of when. But do you think all four NFC East teams get in?
Here's the way the tie plays out, because a lot of times we say that the Eagles are 2.5 games ahead of the Cowboys. They are today. They actually are. But you know that half a game goes away as soon as the Cowboys and Eagles play. If the Cowboys can beat the Eagles, then they pick up a game and a half in one game. Eagles and Giants have to play game 2 yet. So whoever wins that one, there's no balancing the scales. No, we got to get it because the other team got the first. No, whoever wins that game picks up a game and a half that day. And that will be the difference of it. So one team that gets a game and a half is in really good shape. The other team that loses a game and a half, could be roasted. So I really do believe it'll come down to that game between the Giants and the Commanders. Assuming the Giants don't jump up and beat the Eagles this week, which I'm not. I think the Eagles are going to win. Whoever wins Commanders and Giants week after part due will be the team that makes the playoffs. Now, can the other one also make the playoffs? Yeah, because the NFC is so mediocre that they could, if they win out thereafter, they could sneak in and get that playoff spot. They'd get the third spot because you'd lose the tiebreaker to if it's Washington over New York or New York over Washington, either way. Yeah, there's a possibility that all four can make it, but the tie did not help in that regard. It helps whoever wins the next Washington-New York matchup, but it handicaps the loser of that game mightily.
Yeah, I know we still got week 14 on Sunday, but week 15, that's setting up to be a huge, huge week with a lot of good primetime games. You got Seahawks 49ers next Thursday. So for all you complain about Thursday Night Football, we're actually going to get a good game next week. We should get a good game. We got Dolphins Bills. That's Saturday night. That's going to be a big one for the AFC. And you got Giants Commanders Sunday night. Like the NFL really did a good job with flexing that primetime schedule next week.
They did. And I know they thought about flexing this game in. As a matter of fact, this was under serious consideration.
Oh, it was.
Eagles. They went to Chargers and Dolphins. Good on those who have to cover the game on Sunday. I know they prefer Sunday at 1 games rather than Sunday night games. So good for you guys. And oh, by the way, as good as the Dolphins have been, they haven't been in prime time enough. So I'm good with them jumping into the mix.
Yeah, I'm more than okay with it. And this isn't for, like, we're honoring the 50th anniversary of the undefeated Dolphins. No, this is Dolphins are legit. Chargers are playing for a playoff spot. Tua versus Justin Herbert. You know, there's so many storylines in that game. I'll say this. I don't think the Eagles get a game flexed until week 18. And I think that will happen because the Giants will still be in the playoff race, and I think there's going to be a lot of playoff implications on the other side, rather than the Eagles side.
Jeff, I know you stay on top of this. I want to run this by you. Then I got to go refill my coffee.
I was going to say I gotta get you out soon.
Here's the deal. The last 2 weeks, the Eagles have scored 5 touchdowns, minimum of 5 touchdowns. When was the last time the Eagles went back-to-back games scoring 5 offensive touchdowns?
Man, I got to think about this. Yeah, you know what? I remember trying to look this up this week. I
didn't see this in Ruben Frank's column, which Ruben is the best at.
Yeah. Ruben doesn't forget this
number
stuff.
Crunching thing. No, I saw this under a New York byline, which I couldn't believe, and I looked it up. I said, "Damn, he's right." When was the last time Eagles scored 5 touchdowns, offensive touchdowns in back-to-back weeks?
You know what? It's funny. I for some reason I want to say 1949.
Not that long, but
it wasn't that long.
Significantly long. The year after the Super Bowl appearance, the 1981 Ron Jaworski-led Eagles went back-to-back against, and this will tell you how long it's been, the St. Louis Cardinals no longer exist, and the Baltimore Colts no longer exist. Both squads have relocated, but in their former towns, the Eagles run up 5 touchdowns against them. So right now, I'd say the Eagles are working with a prolific offense.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when we always say like St. Louis Cardinals and Baltimore Colts, and we joke about that. I always joke with Sam Ponder on the NFL Countdown, like because she's from the Phoenix area, and she always mentions about, oh, you know, the Cardinals and the 90s Cardinals. I'm like, oh, you mean back when they were the Phoenix Cardinals? And she's like, yeah, people don't remember that. I'm like, yeah, everybody should know they were the Phoenix Cardinals. I can't remember when they actually switched to Arizona. I think it was like 93 or 94 or something like that.
Annoys me when that happens because then people go, wait, you said it wrong. Who the hell cares? You know who I'm talking about? That's the only thing. The Florida Marlins, the Miami. Who cares?
I'm still calling the Florida Marlins. So you don't know how many times I almost said to you last week the San Diego Chargers.
I never apologize when I do that. I'll correct myself, but I never apologize because I didn't change the name. They changed the name. So I'm not going to sweat naming them from time to time.
I don't like them in LA. I just don't. I wish they had their own state. I kind of wish they were back in San Diego. I don't know. Like the NFL is 2 LA teams and no one seems to care about any of them.
Well, they care about the Rams after huge Baker Mayfield-led come-from-behind win against Josh McDaniels last night, Jeff Kerr.
I don't laugh too much during football games. I really laughed at that one. The fact that he went 98 yards. Oh, by the way, the Rams, Patrick Graham. Remember everybody said Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator genius? He played man coverage last night. Baker even said, did you hear the post-game thing between Baker? Oh, so Baker Mayfield said he couldn't believe against man coverage. And Ryan Fitzpatrick drops the biggest Ivy League bomb of all time. He goes, well, you do know the defensive coordinator went to Yale.
Oh, little Ivy League shot, huh?
I love it. Jody Mack, man, always a pleasure having you
Jay
on, my
Kurt,
friend.
thank you. Anytime you need me on your show, I'll hop on because you've been very good hopping on my CBS show with me. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, no problem. If you ever need me on Birds again, just let me know. I can always make some time for you guys.
Done deal. Thanks, pal.
Yeah, all right. Sounds great, buddy. Tone, do you want to come back on, or do we want to take a break here? I know we forgot to kind of run this by everybody earlier, but I do want to say this, though. I think it's hilarious Josh McDaniels lost last night. I think it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. That Josh McDaniels found a way. This man found a way to lose to Jeff Saturday, who was working at ESPN 6 days before. Never coached a game in college or the NFL. And then he loses to Baker Mayfield. And with that being said, we're going to go on a quick break. Tone will join back with me for the end of the show. And we'll put a ball on the show. Again, I got to do a Joey McDonald tribute here because he was on today. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.